ADHD to me is something that actually helped me start to love myself, because before I had that diagnosis, I just was told, oh, you talk too much, you know, you're always late, you're not a good friend, you don't listen, and when you're young and people are telling you things like that all the time, you start to believe it, so then it's hard connecting to people. But then when I was 22 and got diagnosed with that, the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it gave me a reason. It showed me I weren't a bad friend, you know, I weren't a bad worker. I just needed extra help, or I needed a different way to approach it, or I needed to learn some new skills to become a better friend. I actually consciously have to tell myself, don't talk when I'm listening. And it's not because I want to talk over you, it's not because I think what I'm saying is better than what you're saying. It's because I'm passionate about what you're saying, and it's like the excitement, it's like a flipping fizzy bottle of Coke, it's like the lid just wants to pop off, do you get me? And some people really don't understand that, but ADHD has really helped me understand that and stop beating myself up so much for things I really can't help, but instead realise when I start to be kinder to myself, I am learning skills to make me better at those things. I was in my last year of college and my flipping exams were coming up, and I had the opportunity to be an extra on a TV show, and I remember thinking, well, I was going to go to uni to do film, so it'd be better to actually be there. And I remember I mitched off all of my lessons towards the last 6 weeks of college, and they went mad, and I was like, look, this is actually way better for me. But that was my impulsivity. I probably wouldn't have done that if I had just sat and thought about it a bit longer. I would have thought, oh no, I need to focus on college. But would I have been where I am today without that impulsivity because of my ADHD? Or, you know, it's not always ADHD that makes those decisions, but it definitely helped me. When I was on set, I saw the cameras, you know, and I was like, wow, what are they? And being undiagnosed with ADHD, I wasn't aware. I was a bit of a chatterbox, and I couldn't help it when I was passionate about something. I just got to know, you know. So I went up to these people when I was on set, and I'd be really quiet. And I'd be like, oh, what does that number on the lens mean? 80, what does that mean? And then I'd be like, okay, so what does 50 mean then on a lens? And then they'd explain things to me. And every time I was on set as an extra, I'd be talking to the crew, you know. I'd be like, what's that? How does that work? And I just said, can I do work experience here, you know? And then I heard nothing off them. And then the summer holidays came, and I had an email asking if I wanted to do work experience in the studio. So I went, and by the end of the first day, my whole life had changed, because I realised, oh my gosh, I'm not dumb, I'm not, you know, I am intelligent, but just in a different way. It was the ADHD interacting with my education that made me feel dumb. And then when I finished my work experience, I said, can I come and just help you for free? Because I just loved being there. And then they hired me because they saw my passion. It wasn't that I was great at the job in the beginning, it was the fact that I wanted to learn. I don't think I probably would have lost every job if it weren't for the industry I'm in. It's great. The TV and film industry is great for people with ADHD because it's different every day. You can't get bored. There's no, like, repetition. Every scene is different. Every day is different. Every job is temporary too, you know, so you know, even if you are getting bored or you don't like the people you're working with, or, you know, it's gonna be over eventually, and that makes it easier. If you're struggling, you know it's temporary, and there'll be a different project out there one day. But there's also different equipment, and things change all the time. There's always things to learn, even if that's in a different department. There's new people and new locations, so it's perfect because there's new stimuli. And like, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was like, wow, no wonder TV has worked so good for me. And it made me feel sorry for people who hadn't found a career like that yet, you know, or like hadn't, unaware they have ADHD and they don't know why they're getting fired all the time or why they hate the job they're doing. And it's shown me that there is a place for people with ADHD, and there are jobs out there. It's just you've got to find the one that's right for you. I feel like girls are not diagnosed with ADHD as frequently as boys, or as early, because we're not as disruptive. We don't cause enough stress to our parents or the people around us or in school, because a lot of us can be more internal, more daydreamy kind of ADHD people who just zone out into nowhere, you know, but that doesn't mean it's not troubling us in here. But yeah, I definitely think the fact that we don't disrupt the people around us lives as much is a big part in why we're not diagnosed early, because we're quiet and we're like, you know, whereas if you've got the stereotypical boy who's angry, who's throwing tables in school, you know, you don't want that. So, oh, what's wrong with him? Let's get him a diagnosis. Whereas they might just say, oh, why is Tamsin sat over there daydreaming? Concentrate. Why aren't you listening to me? Or maybe you are hyperactive, but it's in a chatty way, you know, and it's not disruptive. You're just told to be quiet all the time. And we're also misdiagnosed with anxiety and depression, borderline personality disorder as well. That's something that was mentioned. Like, I even thought I had that when I was looking into ADHD, because the symptoms overlap. They're very similar. Same with autism, you know, they're very similar symptoms and very misdiagnosed in women. The system can't really afford it either, I think, and sadly it's easier to say you're anxious or depressed if it's not really impacting your life, but I think everyone deserves to know that they have ADHD, no matter their gender. My advice to young women who think they might have ADHD or are struggling with it would first to be to educate yourself on it. You know, like, look into it, like, not just quizzes, like, do a bit of research, look on the NHS website. Well, I did that because I thought, how can I actually get a diagnosis? I thought, if I look at the NHS website, that's what they're going to diagnose me with. So I looked at what they had and I wrote all the points down, you know. Do that for yourself, write all the symptoms down. You might not have all of them, but then just try and see whether, you know, oh, do I do that? Yeah, write a little example down. You know, you might not have all of them. So yeah, look into it. Look, TED Talks, you know, TED Talks really helped me educating myself on the ADHD, but then talking to your friends about it. Like, you'd say, oh, I think I might have ADHD. Do you think I'm quite chatty, or do I interrupt people? Because sometimes we're not aware we're doing it because we don't mean to until we find out. Speak to your doctor, you know, as much as they've failed me, you know, in the process taking nearly 4 years of depression and anxiety and self-harm, and yeah, to get to the diagnosis, you know, it took a lot. It took begging because I wasn't smashing cars up, you know, and it was only affecting me, so it didn't matter. Be persistent, that is a good one. Don't give up, keep going to the doctors, show them that you want to be heard and that you deserve to be heard. You are entitled to an assessment for ADHD if you think you have it, like, that is a thing. And you can go to them and say, I want to be referred to here, and look where your local place for ADHD assessments is, so you've got the place to give them, say, I want to be referred to here, and they can't say no. Being young is really hard, having ADHD. Like, it made it so hard for me to make deep friendships. Like, I was a very good acquaintance. I can socialise with anyone, a social butterfly, but it's all an act. Internally, I was panicking, having anxiety, or I'd hang out with people even though I didn't feel good because I didn't realise, you know, I was masking, you know, and like, now I've become more aware of that. I've actually stopped doing it more, or realised having a day to myself to unwind is good too. I think initially when you have ADHD, you can, if you really like someone, you can be way too much because you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I want to be a friend forever, and you can just be, especially, and relationships too, you know, you can just be all in and intense, and it can push people away or freak people out, or they think, oh my gosh, this person talks too much. When in reality, that's just, with me anyway, it's a response to me just wanting to be accepted and liked. I had 50% attendance in year 10 in high school, and that was because I couldn't sleep and I didn't realise, obviously I had ADHD, I couldn't concentrate in class, I was bored, it weren't teaching me, so I just stopped going, and I was rebelling, which was my impulsivity. But then I met this teacher who did understand me, you know, and we talk a lot, and she created a space where she'd say, if you feel overwhelmed when you're in school, just come to my office. And she said, if you come in every day of year 10, for yourself, don't do it for anyone else, do it for you, because you've got 1 year left in school, you may as well get something out of it, you've been here for a long time. And she believed in me, and she might not have known it was ADHD or whatever was going on, but she created a space for me to calm down. And then, yeah, I went from having 50% attendance in school to 100%, which then got me a scholarship to college for being the most underachieving student, to becoming like 16 GCSEs in 1 year. I did a whole BTEC science in 1 week. that was my hyper focus. I just immersed myself in it, like every day after school. I wanted to prove them wrong, and that was my ADHD probably. I don't know if I could have fitted that much schoolwork into 1 year if it wasn't for my complete focus, you know, which isn't always a choice, but yeah. I did every hobby, so I rock climbed, and like that allowed me to enter some competitions, and I came first place in 2 rock climbing competitions as a kid. Since I was 10, I've done martial arts. I'd boxed for 4 years. I actually won an award because of my dedication when I was a kid. I went every week, 3 times a week for 3 years, and I won a medal because no kid had ever gone to an after-school club that much. I actually got, like, because you have to get points in your diary, so I was super dedicated to that. And then I did judo, I did Muay Thai outside of school, acting. I went to a private acting school that I had to audition to get in, and I would have to save up money myself and pay 90 quid a term to go there. Canoeing, I've done I did a youth leadership, outdoor youth leadership course, dance leaders level 1 and 2. I did my sports leaders level 1 and 2 when I was 14. I breakdanced for 10 years and entered lots of competitions. I taught refugees breakdancing when I was 14. That's how I started earning money at first. I used to get paid £5 an hour to teach refugee children who couldn't speak English. Yeah, I've done all kinds of things. Surfing, skateboarding. I skateboard, I play guitar. So in the first lockdown I picked up the guitar and I just immersed myself in it. I used YouTube, and now I can play quite a lot of songs. It's been 2 years, so I've been doing that. I taught myself a little bit of saxophone, and a lot of things I don't seem to get really good at, but it's really fun, and that's all that really matters. ADHD is my superpower. It literally is. I don't know who I would be without it. Being able to fully immerse myself into things without being able to control that, you know, and having hobbies and learning as much as I can, being curious, you know, wanting to soak up as much of life as I can, and that's impulsively. I can't always control that, which can get me into trouble, but it's also got me to the best places I've ever been. You know, my career, would I have got there without my quirkiness, you know, my ADHD?